Shalom. Okay, reading the Old Testament. Leviticus chapter 11. Here we go. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, "Tell the people of Israel, these are the living creatures which you may eat among all the land animals. Any that has a separate hoof, which is completely divided and chews the cud, these animals you may eat. But you are not to eat those that only chew the cud or only have a separate hoof. For example, the camel. The coney and the hare are unclean for you because they chew the cud, but don't have a separate hoof. While the pig is unclean for you because, although it has a separate and completely divided hoof, it doesn't chew the cud. You're not to eat meat from these or touch their carcasses. They're unclean for you. Of all the things that live in the water, you may eat these, anything in the water that has fins and scales, whether in seas or in rivers. These you may eat. But everything in the seas and rivers without both fins and scales, of all the small water creatures and of all the living creatures in the water, is a detestable thing for you. Yes, these will be detestable for you. You are not to eat their meat, and you're not to... yes, these will be detestable for you. You're not to eat their meat, and you are to detest their carcasses. I'm gonna read the news. Yes, these will be detestable for you. You are not to eat their meat, and you are to detest their carcasses. Whatever lacks fins and scales in the water is a detestable thing for you. I can't read. Whatever lacks fins and scales in the water is a detestable thing for you. The following creatures of the air are to be detestable for you. They are not to be eaten, they are a detestable thing. The eagle, the vulture, the osprey, the kite, the various kinds of buzzards, the various kinds of ravens, the ostrich, the screech owl, the seagull, the various kinds of hawks, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the horned owl, the pelican, the barn owl, the stork, the various kinds of herons, the hoopoe, and the bat. All winged swarming creatures that go on all fours are a detestable thing for you, except that of all winged swarming creatures that go on all fours, you may eat those that have jointed legs above their feet, enabling them to jump off the ground. Specifically, of these you may eat the various kinds of locusts, grasshoppers, katydids, and crickets. But other than that, all winged swarming creatures having 4 feet are But other than that, all winged swarming creatures having 4 feet are a detestable thing for you. The following will make you unclean. Whoever touches the carcass of them will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up any part of their carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every animal that has a separate but incompletely divided hoof, or that doesn't chew the cud, is unclean for you. Anyone who touches them will become unclean. Whatever goes on its paws, among all animals that go on all fours, is unclean for you. Whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up its carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. These are unclean for you. The following are unclean for you among the small creatures that swarm on the ground: the weasel, the mouse, the various kinds of lizards, the gecko, the land crocodile, the skunk, the sand lizard, and the chameleon. They are unclean crawling creatures. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean until evening. Anything on which one of them falls when dead will become unclean. Say that again. Anything on which one of them falls when dead will become unclean. wooden utensil, article of clothing, leather, sacking, any utensil used for work. It must be put in water, and it will be unclean until evening. Then it will be clean. If one of them falls into a clay pot, whatever is in it will become unclean, and you are to break the pot. Any food permitted to be eaten, that water from such a vessel gets on will become unclean. I'm going to say that again, sorry. Any food permitted to be eaten, that water from such a vessel gets on will become unclean, and any permitted liquid in such a vessel will become unclean. Sorry, I'll say it again. I need cannabis. I'm very drunk, by the way. Hungover too. Oof. Very hungover. Okay, 34 again. Any food permitted to be eaten, that water from such a vessel gets on will become unclean, and any permitted liquid in such a vessel will become unclean. Everything on which any carcass part of theirs falls will become unclean, whether oven or stove. It is to be broken in pieces. They are unclean and will be unclean for you. Although a spring or a cistern for collecting water remains clean, but anyone who touches one of their carcasses will become unclean. If any carcass part of theirs falls on any kind of seed to be sown, it is clean. But if water is put on the seed and a carcass part of theirs falls on it, it is unclean for you. If an animal of a kind that you are permitted to eat dies, whoever touches its carcass will be. If an animal of a kind that you are permitted to eat dies, whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. A person who eats meat from its carcass or carries its carcass is to wash his clothes. He will be unclean until evening. Any creature that swarms on the ground is a detestable thing. It is not to be eaten. Whatever moves on its stomach, goes on all fours, or has many legs, all creatures that swarm on the ground, you are not to eat them, because they are a detestable thing. You are not to make yourselves detestable with any of these swarming, crawling creatures. Do not make yourselves unclean with them. Do not defile. You are not to make yourselves detestable with any of these swarming, crawling creatures. Do not make yourselves unclean with them. Do not defile yourselves with them. For I am Yahweh your God. Therefore consecrate yourselves and be holy, for I am holy. And do not defile yourselves with any kind of swarming creature that moves along the ground. For I am Yahweh who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. Therefore you are to be holy, because I am holy. Such, then, is the law concerning animals, flying creatures, all living creatures that move about in the water, and all creatures that swarm on the ground. Its purpose is to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, and between the creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten. Very hungover. This takes time to load. Okay, chapter 12. Yahweh said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel, if a woman conceives and gives birth to a boy, she will be unclean for 7 days with the same uncleanness as in Nida, when she is having her menstrual period. On the 8th day, the baby's foreskin is to be circumcised. She is to wait an additional 33 days to be purified from her blood. She is not to touch any holy thing or come into the sanctuary until the time of her purification is over. But if she gives birth to a girl, she will be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her Nida, and she is to wait another 66 days to be purified from her blood. When the days of her purification are over, Whether for a son or for a daughter, she is to bring a lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or dove for a sin offering, but to the end. I'm gonna read it. Very hungover. Sorry. Ooh. When the days of her purification are over, whether for a son or for a daughter, she is to bring a lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or dove for a sin offering to the entrance of the tent of meeting to the Kohen. He will offer it before Yahweh and make atonement for her. Thus she will be purified from her discharge of blood. Such is the law for a woman who gives birth, whether to a boy or to a girl. If she can't afford a lamb, she is to take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, the one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. The Kohen will make atonement for her, and she will be clean. Okay, what's going on? Short chapter. Chapter 13. Oof. You know what? I'm gonna take a 2-minute break. Thank you. Okay. Very hungover. Okay. Chapter 13. There we go. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, if someone develops on his skin a swelling, scab, or bright spot which could develop into the disease Jarat, he is to be brought to Aaron the Kohen or to one of his sons who are Kohanim. The Kohen is to examine the sore on his skin, if the hair on in the sore. The Kohen is to examine the sore on his skin, if the hair in the sore has turned white, and the sore appears to go deep into the skin, it is Jarat. And after examining him, the Kohen is to declare him unclean. If the bright spot on his skin is white, but it does not appear to go deep into the skin, and its hair has not turned white, then the Kohen is to isolate him for 7 days. On the 7th day, the Kohen is to examine him again, and if the sore appears the same as before and has not spread on the skin, then the Kohen is to isolate him for 7 more days. Isolate him for 7 more days. On the 7th day, the Kohen is to examine him again, and if the sore has faded and hasn't spread on the skin, then the Kohen is to declare him clean. It is only a scab, so he is to wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spreads further on the skin after he has been examined by the Kohen and declared clean, he is to let himself be examined yet again by the Kohen. The Kohen will examine him, and if he sees that the scab has spread on his skin, then the Kohen will declare him unclean. It is tzara'at. If a person has tzara'at, he is to be brought to the Kohen. The Kohen is to examine him, and if he sees that there is a white swelling in the skin which has turned the hair white and inflamed flesh in the swelling, then it is chronic tzara'at on his skin, and the Kohen is to declare him unclean. It is not to isolate him, because it is already clear that he is unclean. If the tzara'at breaks out all over the skin, so that as far as the Kohen can see, the person with tzara'at has sores everywhere on his body, from his head to his feet, then the Kohen is to examine him, and if he sees that the tzara'at has covered his entire body, he is to pronounce the person with the sores clean. He has all turned white, and he is clean. But if one day inflamed flesh appears on him, he will be unclean. The Kohen will examine the inflamed flesh and declare him unclean. The inflamed flesh is unclean. It is tzara'at. However, if the inflamed flesh again turns white, he is to come to the Kohen. The Kohen will examine him, and if he sees that the sores have turned white, then the Kohen is to declare the person. The Kohen will examine him, and if he sees that the sores have turned white, then the Kohen is to declare clean the person with the sores. He is clean. If a person has on his skin a boil that heals in such a way that in place of the boil there is a white swelling or a reddish white bright spot, it is to be shown to the Kohen. The Kohen is to examine it. If he sees that it appears to be more than skin deep, and its hair has turned white, then the Kohen is to pronounce him unclean. The disease of tzara'at has broken out in the boil. But if the Kohen looks at it and doesn't see any white hairs in it, and it hasn't more than skin deep but appears faded, then the Kohen is to isolate him for 7 days. If it spreads on the skin, the Kohen is to declare him unclean. It is the disease. But if the bright spot stays where it was and has not spread, it is the scar of the boil, and the Kohen is to declare him clean. Or if someone has on his skin a burn caused by fire, and the inflamed flesh where it was burnt has become a bright spot, reddish white or white, then the Kohen is to examine it, and if he sees that the hair in the bright spot has turned white, and that it appears to be deeper than the skin around it, it is tzara'at. It has broken out in the burn, and the Kohen is to declare him unclean. It is a sore from tzara'at. But if the Kohen examines it and sees no white hair in the bright spot, and it is no lower than the skin around it but looks faded, then the Kohen is to isolate him for 7 days. On the 7th day, the Kohen is to examine him. If it has spread on the skin, then the Kohen is to declare him unclean. It is a sore from tzara'at. But if the bright spot stays where it was and has not spread on the skin but appears faded, it is a swelling due to the burn, and the Kohen is to declare him clean, because it is only a scar from the burn. If a man or woman has a sore on the head, or a man in his beard, then the Kohen is to examine the sore. If he sees that it appears to be deeper than the skin around it, with yellow, thin hair in it, then the Kohen is to declare him unclean. It is a crusted area, a tzara'at, of the head or beard. If the Kohen examines the diseased crusted area and sees that it appears not to be deeper than the skin around it, and without any black hair in it, then the Kohen is to isolate for 7 days the person with the diseased crusted area. On the seventh day, the Kohen is to examine the sore, and if he sees that the crusted area hasn't spread, that it has no yellow hair in it, and that the crusted area is not deeper than the skin around it, then the person is to be shaved, except for the crusted area itself, and the Kohen is to isolate him for 7 more days. On the seventh day, the Kohen is to examine the crusted area, and if he sees that the crusted area has not spread on the skin and does not appear to be deeper than the skin around it, then the Kohen is to declare him clean. He is to wash his clothes and be clean. But if the crusted area spreads after his purification, then the Kohen is to examine him. And if he sees that the crusted area has spread on the skin, the Kohen is then the Kohen is not to 35. Sorry. But if the crusted area spreads after his purification, then the Kohen is to examine him. And if he sees that the crusted area has spread on the skin, the Kohen is not to look for yellow hair. He's unclean. But if the crusted area's appearance doesn't change, and black hair grows up in it, then the crusted area is healed. He's clean, and the Kohen is to declare him clean. I like reading Sanskrit. If a man or a woman has bright spots on his skin, bright white spots, then the Kohen is to examine them. If he sees that the bright spots on the skin are dull white, it is only a rash that has broken out on the skin. He's clean. If a man's hair has fallen from his scalp, he's bald, but he's clean. If his hair has fallen off the front part of his head, his forehead bald, but he's clean. But if on the bald scalp or forehead there's a reddish white sore, it is tzara'at breaking out on his bald scalp or forehead, then the Kohen is to examine him. If he sees that there is a reddish white swelling on his bald scalp or forehead, appearing like tzara'at on the rest of the body, he is a person with tzara'at. He's unclean. The Kohen must declare him unclean. The sore is on his head. Everyone who has tzara'at sores is to wear torn clothes and unbound hair, cover his upper lip and cry, "Unclean, unclean." As long as he has sores, he will be unclean. Since he is unclean, he must live in isolation. He must live outside the camp. When tzara'at infects an article of clothing, whether it be a woolen or a linen garment, on the threads or the woven-in parts of either linen or wool, or on a hide or item made of leather, then if the stain on the garment hide threads, woven-in parts, or leather item is reddish or reddish. I'll read it again. Very hungover. Then, if the stain on the garment, hide, threads, woven-in parts, or leather item is reddish or reddish, it is an infection of tzara'at and is to be shown to the Kohen. The Kohen is to examine the stain and isolate the article that has the infection for 7 days. On the 7th day, he is to examine the stain. If the stain has spread on the garment, threads, woven-in parts, or leather, whatever its use, the infection is a contagious tzara'at. The garment is unclean. He is to burn the garment, threads, woven-in parts of either wool or linen, or item of leather having the infection, for it is a contagious tzara'at. It must be burned up completely. But if, when the Kohen examines it, he sees that the infection has not spread on the garment, or in the threads, woven-in parts, or leather item, then the Kohen is to order that the article having the infection be washed and isolated for 7 more days. The Kohen is to examine it after the stain has been washed, and if he sees that the stain has not been changed, once again, the Kohen is to examine it after the stain has been. I wish I wasn't hungover. I wish I didn't have to drink. You have to drink to survive in this world. The Kohen is to examine it after the stain has been washed, and if he sees that the stain has not changed color, then, even though the stain has not spread, it is unclean. You are to burn it up completely. It is rotten, no matter whether the spot is on the outside or on the inside. If the Kohen examines it and sees that the stain has faded after being washed, then he is to tear the stain out of the garment, leather, threads, or woven-in parts. If it appears again in the garment, threads, woven-in parts, or leather item, it is contagious, and you are to burn up completely the article that had the stain. But if the infection is gone from the garment, threads, woven-in parts, or leather item that you washed, then it is to be washed a second time, and it will be clean. This is the law concerning infections of tzara in a garment of wool or linen, or in the threads, or the woven-in parts, or in any leather item. One to declare it clean, and one to declare it unclean. Yeah. And maybe on one more chapter. Alright, last chapter. Chapter 14. Yahweh said to Moshe, "This is to be the law concerning the person afflicted with tzara on the day of his purification. He is to be brought to the Kohen, and the Kohen is to go outside the camp and examine him there. If he sees that the tzara sores have been healed in the afflicted person, then the Kohen will order that 2 living clean birds be taken for the one to be purified, along with cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop leaves. The Kohen is to order one of the birds slaughtered in a day The Kohen is to order one of the birds slaughtered in a clay pot over running water. As for the live bird, he is to take it with the cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop, and dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird slaughtered over running water, and sprinkle the person to be purified from the tzara 7 times. Next is to set the live bird free in an open field. He who is to be purified must wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and bathe himself in water. Then he will be clean, and after that he may enter the camp. But he must live outside his tent for 7 days. On the 7th day he is to shave all the hair off his head, also his beard and eyebrows. He must shave off all his hair, and he is to wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day he is to take 2 male lambs without defect, 1 female lamb in its first year without defect, and 6½ quarters of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with olive oil, and 2/3 of a pint of olive oil. The Kohen purifying him is to place the person being purified with these items before Yahweh at the entrance to the tent of meeting. 1 second. The Kohen is to take 1 of the male lambs and offer it as a guilt offering with the 2/3 pint of olive oil, then wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. He is to slaughter the male lamb at the place in the sanctuary for slaughtering sin offerings and burnt offerings, because the guilt offering belongs to the Kohen, just like the sin offering. It is especially holy. The Kohen is to take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the tip of the right ear of the person being purified, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Next, the Kohen is to take some of the 2/3 pint of olive oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. Dip his right finger in the oil, that is, in his left hand, and sprinkle from the oil with his finger 7 times before Yahweh. Then the Kohen is to put some of the remaining oil in his hand on the tip of the right ear of the person being purified, on the thumb of his right hand, on the big toe of his right foot, and on the blood of the guilt offering. I'm going to say that again. I'm very hungover. Ugh. Then the Kohen is to put some of the remaining oil in his hand on the tip of the right ear of the person being purified, on the thumb of his right hand, on the big toe of his right foot, and on the blood of the guilt offering. Finally, the Kohen is to put the rest of the oil in his hand on the head of the person being purified, and the Kohen will make atonement for him before Yahweh. The Kohen is to offer the sin offering and make atonement for the person being purified because of he's unclean. I can't say certain words because of my injuries. I can't say a lot of words because of my injury. The Kohen is to offer the sin offering and make atonement for the person being purified because of his uncleanness. Afterwards, he is to slaughter the burnt offering. The Kohen is to offer the burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar. Thus the Kohen will make atonement for him, and he will be clean. If he is poor so that he can afford to do otherwise, he is to take one male lamb as a guilt offering to be waved, to make atonement for him. 2 quarts of fine flour mixed with olive oil for a grain offering, 2/3 of a pint of olive oil, and 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he can afford, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. On the 8th day he will bring them to the Kohen for his purification to the entrance of the tent of meeting before Yahweh. The Kohen is to take the lamb of the guilt offering and the 2/3 of a pint of olive oil and wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. He is to slaughter the lamb of the guilt offering, and the Kohen is to take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the tip of the right ear of the person being purified, on the thumb of his right hand, on the big toe of his right foot. The Kohen is to take some of the olive oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand, and sprinkle with his right hand some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before Yahweh. The Kohen is to put some of the oil in his hand on the tip of the right ear of the person being purified, on the thumb of his right hand, on the big toe of his right foot, in the same place as the blood of the guilt offering. Finally, the Kohen is to put the rest of the oil in his hand on the head of the person being purified to make atonement for him before Yahweh. He is to offer one of the doves or young pigeons, such as the person can afford, whatever his means suffice for, the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, with the grain offering. Thus the Kohen will make atonement before Yahweh for the person being purified. Such is the law for the person who has tzara'at, sores, if he cannot afford the usual elements used for his purification. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aharon, "When you have entered the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as a possession, and I put an infection of tzara'at in a house in the land that you possess, then the owner of the house is to come and tell the Kohen, 'It seems to me that there may be an infection in the house.' The Kohen is to order the house emptied before he goes in to inspect the infection, so that everything in the house won't be made unclean. Afterwards, the Kohen is to enter and inspect the house. He will examine the I can't say infection. Are you kidding me? He will examine the infection. And if he sees that the infection is in the walls of the house, with greenish or reddish depressions that seem to go in deeper than the surface of the wall, he is to go out of the house to its door and seal up the house for 7 days. The Kohen will come again on the 7th day and examine the house. If he sees that the infection has spread over its walls, he is to order them to remove the infected stones and throw them into some unclean place outside the city. Next, he is to have the inside of the house thoroughly scraped, and the scraped off plaster is to be discarded outside the city in an unclean place. Finally, other stones must be set in the place of the first stones and other plaster used to replaster the house. If the infection returns and breaks out in the house after the stones have been removed and the house scraped and plastered, then the Kohen is to enter and examine it. If he sees that the infection has spread in the house, it is a contagious tzara'at in the house. It is unclean. He must break down the house and take its stones, timber, and plaster out of the city and to an unclean place. I'm gonna say, very hungover, sorry. It must break down the house and take its stones, timber, and plaster out of the city to an unclean place. Moreover, whoever enters the house at any time while it is sealed up will be unclean until evening. Whoever lies down or eats in the house must wash his clothes. If the Kohen enters, examines, and sees that the infection has not spread in the house since it was plastered, then he is to declare the house clean because the infection is cured. To purify the house, he is to take 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop leaves. He is to slaughter one of the birds in a clay pot over running water. He is to take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet yarn, and the live bird and dip them in the blood of the slaughtered bird and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. He will purify the house with the blood of the bird, the running water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn. But he is to set the live bird free outside the city in an open field. Thus will he make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. Such is the law for all kinds of tzara'at sores, for a crusted area, for tzara'at in a garment, for a house, for a swelling, for a scab, and for a bright spot, to determine when it is clean and when it is unclean. This is the law concerning tzara'at. I might do another chapter. 36. I took a 5-minute break. 30 minutes. Alright, absolute last chapter. Last chapter. Chapter 15. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, tell the people of Israel, when any man has a discharge from his body, the discharge is unclean. The discharge is unclean no matter whether it continues flowing or has stopped. It is still his uncleanness. Every bed which the person with the discharge lies on is unclean, and everything he sits on is unclean. Whoever touches his bed is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. Whoever sits on anything the person with the discharge sat on is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches the body of the person with the discharge is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. If the person with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, the latter is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. Any saddle that the person with the discharge rides on will be unclean. Whoever touches anything that was under him will be unclean until evening. He who carries these things is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. If the person with the discharge fails to rinse his hands in water before touching someone, that person is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. If the person with the discharge touches a clay pot, it must be broken. If it touches a wooden utensil, it must be rinsed in water. When a person with the discharge has become free of it, he is to When a person with the discharge has become free of it, he is to count 7 days for his purification. Then he is to wash his clothes and bathe his body in running water. After that he will be clean. On the 8th day he is to take for himself 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, come before Yahweh to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Kohen. The Kohen is to offer them, the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. Thus the Kohen will make atonement for him on account of his discharge before Yahweh. If a man has a seminal emission, he is to bathe his entire body in water. He will be unclean until evening. Any clothing or leather on which there is any semen is to be washed with water. It will be unclean until evening. If a man goes to bed with a woman and has sexual relations, both are to bathe themselves in water. They will be unclean until evening. If a woman has a discharge, and the discharge from her body is blood, she will be in her state of nida for 7 days. Whoever touches her will be unclean until evening. Everything she lies on or sits on in her state of nida will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. Whoever touches anything she sits on is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. Whether he's on the bed or on something she sits on, when he touches it, he will be unclean until evening. If a man goes to bed with her, and her menstrual flow touches him, he will be unclean 7 days, and every bed he lies on will be unclean. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, not during her period, or if her discharge lasts beyond the normal end of her period, then throughout the time she is having an unclean discharge, she will be as when she is in nida, she is unclean. Every bed she lies on at any time while she is having her discharge will be for her like the bed she uses during her time of nida. And everything she sits on will be unclean with uncleanness like that of her time of nida. Whoever touches those things will be unclean. He is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean until evening. If she has become free of her discharge, she is to count 7 days. After that she will be clean. On the 8th day, she is to take for herself 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the Kohen at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The Kohen is to offer the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. Thus the Kohen will make atonement for her before Yahweh on account of her unclean discharge. In this way you will separate the people of Israel from their uncleanness, so that they will not die in a state of uncleanness for defiling my tabernacle which is there with them. Such is the law for the person who has a discharge, for the man who has a seminal emission that makes him unclean, for the woman in nida during her menstrual period, for the person, man or woman, with a discharge, and for the man who has sexual relations with the woman who is unclean. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much. Let me just fix my title. So hungover. I try to puke. I can't even puke. Alright, the only other thing I'm gonna do is ASMR chanting, whisper chanting tonight at around 10 p.m. If I'm not passed out by then. So yeah, as long as I'm not passed out, I'll try to do it. Thank you. Have a good night. Ma shalom.